187th Precinct bonus episode. The bonus episode for the book Lady, Lady, I Did It. And where better to start than with Book Huffing, which has taken on a bit of a life of its own. It's a very popular part of the sequence.
Is it?
Us, well, particularly you, Stevo, having a good sniff of the old book. Oh, that was a good thorough deep dive there.
Right, page 104.
If you compare...
Page 44. Yes. Yes, it's a medium age smell.
What we should probably do is do the book huffing, get you to describe it, and then the listener should have to guess which edition it is.
Oh, well, yeah.
Call 1-800-555-BOOK.
Book Huff. Well,
go on, what's your edition then?
Well,
anyway?
mine's the pan, which yours... Well, ours look very similar, but they're actually different. This is the 1980 UK pan.
Now, I've got this. Mine says it's a 1980 UK pan edition. But there is differences, because as you were looking at... Earlier on tonight, you were looking in the back of yours and reading out a list of books advertised in the back, as paperbacks often do. And mine doesn't have that. Also, mine is only 90p when it was originally on sale.
Well, it has some, because it has the Ed McBain's, but again, mine's saying you can buy Hell for the Chief for £1.50, and yet yours says... this is interesting.
Come on, get the numbers.
80 pence?
There surely can't have been a price hike like that in the course of 1980.
Well, how much is yours on the
No, but so I suspect that this must be later.
Interesting.
There was significant inflation in the early to mid-80s.
I can well believe it, yeah.
Within the year 1980?
Well, not within the year 1980, no, but... See, it's got
No, I was 2. Money didn't interest me at the time.
Yeah, significant differences we're spotting here.
We'd have to do a very forensic examination.
Well, I might forensically... Yeah, you see, they got the same ISBN number. But yeah, mine is clearly later in the 80s.
Yeah,
I feel like what's his name, Corso in The Ninth Gate.
I'm not sure when
I don't know what any of that
Barcodes
meant.
That Polanski film with where he's comparing books written by the devil.
Oh,
and
right.
finds slightly different.
I've not seen that one.
Yes.
So what was that about barcodes?
I'm not sure when barcodes became commonplace on
Yeah, because my edition doesn't have a barcode.
Right,
Your edition does have a
Shall I
barcode.
do a quick bit
I'm
of
thinking
research
that
on
that feels to me like a bit of a later 80s sort of feature, because certainly in terms of records, you only really see them creeping in from sort of the mid-80s onwards, and I don't know.
But you said you've been cataloguing your record collection recently, haven't you? So
I have
you
been.
must have been peering at numbers and catalogue numbers and
It
references.
becomes a lot easier when barcodes actually do come in, because otherwise I'm squinting, taking up my glass and squinting at matrix run-out grooves to try and find very slightly different etchings.
When do you think the barcode was introduced in the UK?
1974.
Right. Well, you know the answer. On what product do you think that was? Don't you say anything.
Was I right?
Sliced
Yeah.
bread.
Oh, excellent. That was quite good.
Was that a total guess?
It was an informed guess.
On a packet of Wrigley's chewing gum.
All right.
The reason it was an informed guess is because a little while ago, my mum and stepdad were arguing about when barcodes became popular in grocery stores, and I think we looked it up in the end. And so I had an idea that it was the 70s.
Now, this is like in your time, isn't it? Barcodes.
I would imagine that they probably came onto books and the like a bit later on generally. I don't know, definitely a lot of early 80s editions of records still don't have them.
Types of barcode.
Oh my goodness.
Bloody hell. This is...
But what's amazing is the edition I've got, which is UK 1980, 90p. Yours says UK 1980, and it is £1.95. That is a massive.
It's a massive hike,
difference.
isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't. There are some different numbers in it. Oh, it's mystical.
It is. And yet, if that some time has passed between them, still no one's thought to change the cover.
No one. The rendering of the colours is slightly different. The picture's a bit crisper on your edition, Stevo. The picture on the front of our pan editions of McBain's Lady Lady I Did It is of the front left of the bumper of a Chevrolet, and that's it. And once you know what the plot of the book is, that's a real giveaway.
If you pay a lot of attention to the front cover of the book and then read it, then it's probably going to set off some alarm bells when a certain character appears, given his occupation.
A very detailed photograph by Colin Thomas of the front of a car.
I don't want to put down Colin Thomas's work. It's a very nice picture.
No, he did what he was told, I'm sure. But it's got nice shiny gold McBain, and on the cover of mine, it's got an indentation of the number 40. Have you seen that, Stevo, on the front there? Indented into his number 40. Whereas yours has actually got written inside it. And we do like some mysterious stuff.
Karen 9451437, it says.
Someone's written something in. Ring it.
Well, I'll try. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this mystery.
Okay, Stevo's going to the bottom of a mystery, so Morgan, you better tell us about your edition.
Well, very well. Again, I've got the boring edition. It's just the Orion.
2003?
2005, this one.
Oh, right, okay. Right, so the year of McBain's death.
So, still relatively sort of yellowing a little bit. It doesn't smell very exciting or anything.
Smell exciting. Who's your dedication to in there?
It's still not rededicated to Drajika, interestingly. It's dedicated
to Henry Morrison?
That's the guy.
Yeah.
And the cover, a bit less annoyingly spoilery. It does have a somewhat damaged and blood-stained copy of Principles and Methods.
One of the books Claire Townsend is getting out of the bookshop.
A necklace and a file with what appears to be Kling case written on it, but there is also a picture on the front of the file of the same Chevrolet that appears in your editions, but it's a little bit less highlighted, so it might not give things away quite so much.
I'm not really finding anything in answer to, but you search under Lady. I did it UK Pan editions, and the third thing that comes up is novelty penis frying pan, followed by an article entitled Argentinian critics pan Margaret Thatcher biopic The Iron Lady.
What?
I mean, all important news, but
the internet is such a wonderful thing, isn't it?
And then below that is Lady I Did It 1980 pan paperback.
I'll see what I can find out, and I'll put it on the Twitter feed.
So yeah,
and Instagram as well. You can follow us on that. Anyway, let's get away from that. Stevo's now obsessively.
Well, no, it's just a bit of a mystery, but I've got a nice new frying pan on the way.
Yeah, that'll cheer up when you make your eggs in the morning.
I know, yeah.
So, full disclosure, everyone. You'll have just heard some music, and that's because we've had our first ever technical failure partway through recording the bonus episode. Luckily, not too far before I noticed, the SD card ran out and we lost some classic material, but it gives us time to regroup about this very, very important issue, and that important issue is Stevo proposed during the main podcast, which we've listened to over and over again for the past week, that the old column by Anthony Boucher from the New York Times called Criminals at Large be rebooted as Criminals and Little and Large, and we're going to explain who Little and Large are for you now. So, Stevo, let the people across the world, all our listeners in France and Canada and America and Japan and Finland and Australia, well, you'd think they'd know them in Australia, but let everyone know who Little and Large are.
They're probably on postage stamps the world over, Little and Large.
One would hope so.
They were a pair of comedians. Can I use that? Entertainers, maybe.
Club comics.
Who were on Saturday night television during the 1980s and attracted hundreds of millions of people,
billions
on a weekly basis.
It was during a time when basically any duo of Northern Club comics could seem to get some kind of very, very highly rated primetime TV show.
And as the name suggests, one of them was little and one of them was large, although the little one was tall and the large one was short. And they used to wear...
It was more about their...
dinner jackets.
Respective girths, I would say.
And there was a perm and there was a perm going on.
It was definitely at least one perm happening.
But the concept of the television programme, so you could get these fairly largely unfunny entertainers, but then have a guest criminal.
A guest murderer.
Yeah. Or,
They could do a light-hearted skit about trying to book a holiday in a travel agent's, but the travel agent's played by...
Dennis Nielsen.
Or you could have a skit about someone going into hospital to have an operation and the doctor's mixed up and it's Harold Shipman.
Hey!
Classic stuff.
Laughs
like
all
that.
around.
Yeah, there's nothing funnier than that.
Myra Hindley serving school dinners or something.
With Little and Large dressed as schoolboys.
Yeah, oh God.
Oh, they would be, yeah, absolutely. I can just see Eddie Large in his short shorts now, and it's making me feel a little queasy.
The thing is, none of us can particularly remember the episodes as a whole, can we? I've got a memory of Little and Large doing a routine about the song Never on a Sunday, which is a sort of Greek rhythm song where they just smashed plates.
That would definitely happen.
It was just some sort of crockery revenge going on. And what was your memory, Morgan?
I don't know if I actually really remember it or if I've invented it out of some dark, twisted corner of my brain, but I seem to recall them doing some kind of heavy metal skit where they had a young guitarist at the time, Thomas McRocklin, who must have been...
Was McRocklin actually his name?
I have a weird feeling it might actually really be his name. I'm not sure. I'm sure the internet could verify that in a heartbeat if I could be asked to look it up. But he was a young lad who had... He was the youngest artist ever to have an Ibanez endorsement, and he was a heavy metal shredder. And I think they definitely had some skit with Eddie Large with some daft big hair wig, and I keep hitting my mic stand because I'm so excited.
He is. He's flailing all over the place.
Because Eddie Large loved the opportunity to get his guitar out, because I think he probably vaguely played a little bit, and there was loads of arsing around like that. And I believe Thomas McRocklin is still an Ibanez endorsee to this day, and still tours the music shows, giving product demonstrations and the like.
And reading from his memoirs, My Life with Little and Large.
How my life was ruined by Little and Large.
So that's who Little and Large were. The UK was haunted by the spectre of double acts for years. I'm just looking across the table now, and Stevo has just shown Morgan something on his phone, and Morgan's given a double thumbs up.
It's been verified.
Oh.
It really happened. I didn't imagine it.
Do you feel better now that you know that it was real and that you didn't just dream this?
I would have felt a bit odd if that was what I was having dreams about, to be honest. So that's good.
Excellent stuff. Well, there you go. So, yeah, there was Little and Large. There was also a double act who were almost identical called Cannon and Ball. Not quite so hefty, the Ball character.
But
that sounds weird.
It definitely, the same sort of like tall, skinny, and then short, permed guy. A bit more racist twanging.
Cheeky chappy.
It was the sort of, the tall, skinny one was always the straight chap. The straight chap, the straight man in the thing. The tall guy was always that. And the other was the wild card.
Oh, he was a bit zany.
Who does something like wear crazy braces or be a bit big.
And then they have massive tax fraud problems, and then they become born-again Christians.
That sort of thing, allegedly.
Ooh, Cannon and Ball?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, right.
And then I go and see them on Great Yarmouth Pier.
Which is a classic place to go and see.
A pockle moment, supported by the Platters.
Platters?
Who were quite good.
Well,
I don't believe they had any original members in, possibly some relatives of original members, but they were good.
The Tupperware Platters.
They were the official Platters, whoever inherited the name. They were good, and then, Cannon and Ball.
Yeah. And let's not even get into the crazy world of Hale and Pace.
Ooh, let's not.
Slightly later. They
picked up the mantle, I think. Yeah. They're a bit more edgy.
The baton.
Am I right in thinking, or have I also invented this?
No,
were they at one point cast as DL and Pascoe in a chief
sure.
adaptation?
You might be right there.
Because that would tie in nicely with Police Procedurals, because Reginald Hill's DL and Pascoe series, which is excellent, by the way.
I've never read any of it.
Well,
I've never watched any of the TV show.
I've got a couple of duplicates, which I'll happily pass on to you.
That's exciting, folks.
Really good, as long as you can get over the fact that definitely that many murders do not occur in rural Yorkshire. once you can get past that, it's actually a really good series.
Oh, excellent stuff. Oh, well, there you go. We found a link to Police Procedurals there. Hale and Pace, who were the follow-up double act to the like of Cannon and Ball and Little and Large, were cast briefly as the characters DL and Pasco.
In my vague memory or imagination.
No, I think you're
possibly.
right, actually. That rings a bell with me as well. It's one of those things that you sort of discover and go, what? No one's going to have a clue what we're talking about. Let's get back to some important business. Our friend Steve Morse, friend of the show Steve Morse, submitted a couple of questions, of which the only one I'm deigning to answer, because he's a silly man. He asked this question, so get your brains working on this one. Which Ed McBain book would be best turned into a picture book for my 3-year-old daughter to read?
Oh.
And he does follow up by saying, and are any comic versions of McBain titles available?
Well, you did already discuss an Evan Hunter children's book illustrated by Quentin Blake.
Yes, indeed.
Which I think would be a good one to look out for, although
that's not
I
Ed
imagine
McBain, is it?
It isn't, this is true.
I mean, how could you turn an 87th Precinct into a children's book for a 3-year-old?
Well, no.
There is The Christmas Story, which was released in an illustrated edition, which is is a bit less bleak than some of the other ones.
Yeah, probably that one. I can't think any of the others would be any remote interest to a 3-year-old.
Even the ones that are more light-hearted tend to have something fairly nasty in them, as, is the nature of the genre, really.
However, I will say off the back of that following the 87th Precinct TV series, there was a series of comics about the 87th Precinct published. They don't loom large in comics history, I don't think, but I think that was the case with a lot of TV tie-ins, but they did exist. I'm just going to pass this over to Morgan. What I'm doing is I'm passing Morgan a book called Best Crime Comics on a page called 87th Precinct. What's it called? This Blind Man's Bluff.
Yeah.
And that purports to feature the characters as they're portrayed in the TV show.
I see, yeah.
But I don't think the artwork particularly looks like that.
Not really. It's kind of crude, but I actually quite like it.
Stark is the word I'd use.
Yeah, it's some fairly sort of stark line work, not quite as much shading and some of these things as you'd expect from a modern comic. It actually looks really cool. Yeah. I'd quite like to read it.
I'd like to read a lot more of those, but I think there was a handful of them, and there's some business about the author of that being anonymous and writing a crap script for the next one and putting the artist off drawing them. But this is a big book called Best Crime Comics, which I've recommended to people before. I think I've mentioned once or twice that there was some comic tie-ins. It would be a rich seam for some good comic adaptations and graphic novel adaptations.
Yeah. Well, there've been a run of really successful adaptations of the Richard Stark Parker novels, which I think have been really well received. So maybe on the back of that, some other kind of classic crime fiction will be picked up and people will do some adaptations, because I think definitely it would be a great thing for someone to do. Yeah,
so I'm pleased to have been able to get hold of that one. And I think we got this book, Best Crime Comics, not knowing that was in there, actually. It was because it was cheap in a bookshop or something I saw once. I can't remember the origin story of me buying that book, but to have that 87th Precinct thing is a little
it looks
treat.
Like an amazing book just generally, but yeah.
So, Mr. Stephen Morse, I don't think there is genuinely... You could not subject a 3-year-old to any of the 87th Precinct stories, except, perhaps, And All Around the House, which is already written with a... less of a distressing storyline to it.
Indeed. Maybe let her get a little bit closer to double figures before introducing her to that. I reckon, once you're 10, you're totally fine to start reading these things.
Or just pick one and read it to her. She's not going to know. She might have terrifying nightmares and have to have therapy for the rest of her life, but that's the thing. But yeah, the world of comics and crime is... Again, this big sort of pulpy mishmash of where they were released and where they were done, and a lot of these things were never done as comics because they existed in this very cheap publishing world anyway, quick turnaround, cheap printing type stuff in the early days. So yeah, a modern graphic novel would be a lovely thing to see.
Yeah, I think anyone listening, take up the baton, run with it, come on.
Yeah, put in all that work so we can benefit.
Absolutely.
One thing I would like to mention as well that I didn't mention in our main podcast, but I did put on our Twitter thing, is I updated the book list on our website. I'm trying to be quite comprehensive about this. And what I've done in my update is basically add in the short stories from the 87th Precinct world that don't feature in the main canon. And I've sort of numbered them with 48A, 48B to put them in relation to the main list as well. So there is a few short stories you can get hold of, and I'm going to have to refer to my own list because my memory is not what it once was. There's not lots of them, but it's worth having a look to see if you want to try and collect them. If you can, flipping help me because I can't get hold of them. So in 1997, there was a short story that was published in TV Guide magazine.
That's insane, isn't it?
Called Reruns, which as far as I can tell is about someone having their TV stolen. These are covered in Erin MacDonald's book, The Literary Companion, about Ed McBain, Evan Hunter. So I'm assuming copies do exist somewhere.
Yep.
48B from 1990. Yeah. You remember years? Remember how to say years? 1998 was The Last Best Hope, which is a Matthew Hope novel, but that's the one with Corella in it. So that's not an 87th Precinct spin-off, but it's got Corella in, so that counts.
I don't think I knew there was a crossover between those two.
Yeah.
That's great.
Then in 2005, there's a story called Merely Hate, which was in the volume Transgressions, which Ed McBain edited, but also put an 87th Precinct short story in a novella.
Oh.
And between 2003 and 2005, Ed McBain was on the BBC as part of this programme called End of Story, which was a writing competition. And several authors put forward the start of a short story, and the competition was people to put endings to it. But of course, he also wrote his own ending. So I have linked to that because it is officially legally available. And that was the last published 87th Precinct story.
Amazing.
So there are 4 or 5 more in there, but the scholar Ted Bergman includes them as just individual numbers in the list, and that sort of sends me into a slight OCD nightmare of saying, but there's 55 87th Precinct things. So I've given them sub-numbers to try and put them into...
I think that's
Very
fair enough.
sensible.
I know, I can't help myself.
Very
I
sensible.
like to organise things into charts and grids. Okie dokie.
It is
Well,
to your credit.
thank you very much. So we shall return before too long with our next podcast, which will be about the book The Empty Hours, or the 3 short stories, The Empty Hours, the novellas. Maybe we'll take responsibility each for one of those ones
my
for leading the
goodness.
discussion and debate on that.
Jeepers.
That sounds terrifying.
Mix it up a little bit. But we're hoping to bring in some other bits and pieces, such as review The Young Savages, the film based on Evan Hunter's A Matter of Conviction, which I think probably ties quite neatly into See Them Die and gangs and Puerto Rican society at the time. That sort of thing, don't you know? And hopefully some other stuff should be coming up soon. I'm trying to drag another colleague to do a review of the Desert Island Discs appearance of Evan Hunter, Ed McBain. I'm also getting someone on board to look at The Birds, which is taking up a big part of Ed McBain's life at this point because he's moving out to write it. And if you've not read Me and Hitch by Evan Hunter, it's a very good memoir and takes about 20 minutes to read because it's quite short, but very, very interesting. So, until we return with whatever we return with, I'm going to say goodbye in a mysterious voice. Goodbye. And?
Goodbye.
And?
Goodbye.
Sounds a little bit weird, that. Goodbye.
See ya.